Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of
Gay Isn't Stupid.
We're your hosts, Isaac.
And Aaron.
And we're back with another episode. Damn, I started out like that, huh?
Hello, homosexuals.
For this month, we're going to be talking kind of broadly about the topic of straight people kind of like tokenizing and fetishizing gay people and like straight objectification of gay people. So we're going to start out with Aaron and I talking about a couple different like incidences and like specific categories of this kind of objectification that like we know we've experienced and like make us like angry anytime we think about it. And then we also have a couple quotes from some women who love women so that it's not just our good old gay male fucking onions. So
Yeehaw.
yeah, so we're going to start with talking about the whole like rhetoric that is like, oh, but you're not one of those gays, because like it's still really commonplace, which is so weird.
It's been also just to like put some perspective on this, because that's kind of always been a thing. I feel like the like fake tolerant straight people that do that. But I am currently reading a book about gay male writers, and it's a lot. It contains some things that I am not very happy with, but he's talking about, it starts from like the 50s and goes up until like the 90s, and he's talking about like the late 1940s and several very blatant instances of this happening with the people that he's writing about, and like the way that people viewed their art based on like how much gay subtext they could pick out in it, and using that kind of like rhetoric, like, oh, it's okay if you're gay as long as you're not like shoving it in our faces. So it's been like a very present and obvious thing for a while that hasn't really changed from like then until now. The only difference really is that like if you are openly gay, then there's less of a chance of you being like killed for it.
Yeah.
But microaggressions like that are still very much unchanged from the way that they were decades ago.
Yeah, and it just feels so bizarre to me because like it's just such a weird way that like gay people are stereotyped. Like it happens both to like gay men and women, but obviously I am more inclined to talk about gay men because that is my lane. But like,
because you love them.
It's yeah, sadly. But like there's like two major like things straight people will either group us into, and this goes for whether or not how they're viewing actual people or how they write stories. And either you're the super flamboyant, feminine, sassy straight girl's best friend gay, or you're a closeted, outwardly homophobic jock, which gets into weird territory because then
you're gay and
no, say what you're gonna say.
To say, or they're gay and they're like, they have internalized homophobia and they like murder a guy that they sleep with or something. Like that's older, but it's very like,
yeah. And it's weird because no matter which one you are, they still kind of hate you. And even though like it's either those two things, but yeah, that's generally like the two main categories I see straight people kind of like grouping us into. And if you don't fit into either of those things, it's kind of like always a question if you really are gay, no matter if you're anywhere in between those two. But if you are like a more masculine gay person, you always get the, are you really gay? Like, haha, I would have never known. Or if you're more flamboyant,
If you're more flamboyant, then you then become an object for people.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Put their little, like, all of their little things on, because suddenly you're everyone's gay best friend. Suddenly you're an experiment for all the guys that want to, like, have a little fling with a guy and don't want to talk about it. Everyone... is like, oh, give me fashion advice. It's that kind of experience. Things become very private, things become very grabbed onto and publicized in a way that's not necessarily comfortable.
Yeah. And like in the case of like being for a lot of more flamboyant people, it's like suddenly gay sex is appropriate to talk about, but only when it's coming from the mouth of straight people as a joke. Like, exactly. You're not allowed to, as a gay person, own your sexuality and sit down and be like, I like men, I like sleeping with men, I like doing whatever sexual act with men you can list. And they're always put off by that. But as soon as a straight person goes like, haha, it's because you suck cock or something, then it's like fine, apparently, by the masses, as long as you are being made fun of. And another problem with this, it's just like straight people apply these stereotypes towards everything and like judge us by how gay we are based on how we fit, like their image of a gay person based on like, I don't know, fucking homophobia. There's another way really to put that.
And then like decades long like cultural stereotypes that they never think to question because they don't really see us as human beings. So they can be, like tolerant of the gays. And then they have like all these things where they're like, oh, well, like the bottom in a couple is always super feminine. And they never have to question that because it's not relevant to their life in any way. They don't want to actually know a gay person or have those conversations because it invades their bubble. So they can hang on to their like social clout amongst their friends of being very liberal and very open-minded while also maintaining these stereotypes as straight people that come from homophobia.
Yeah. And like, it just takes away a gay person's like agency. Right, basically, to that agency, right, to like have their own individuality and to be themselves, because they're ridiculed by like most people depending on how they fit it, or they're just questioned constantly, which gets just annoying and definitely disheartening, because then you feel like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I like not actually this? Is a common problem. And like talking about like straight people always making like feminine people to be like bottoms and stuff. I have a friend and I made a joke about, we know of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid, and if you don't recognize that name, think of the video game character who got his ass taken away for a while and then they gave it back and it's fat.
Oh, him.
Yeah, him.
I don't know any video games.
But you know about his infamous fat ass, Aaron.
Yeah, because unfortunately. Because you won't stop sending it to me.
Listen, everyone deserves to see Snake's fat ass. But we were playing Smash Brothers, and I had made a comment about how Snake's a bottom. And my straight friend had the audacity to kind of make a comment about how there's no way he could be a bottom. And when I like pressed him as to like why he said that, he was like, well, look at him. And like his build is like pretty buff and like pretty masculine looking. And that was his whole reason, is he's masculine. And I was like, what? And I remember like I didn't really push any harder because I was like, I'm not about to get into semantics about topping and bottoming with my weird straight friend.
Oh, you can send it to me because I will. I don't give a
fuck. I'm sure you will, but like it was late and I was like, you know what? I don't want to talk about this right now.
No, you're valid.
But like I remember texting my friends and like some people knew, and I was like, homie, I just had somebody in my room try to tell me Snake's not a bottom because he's masculine. Like, it's just so weird the way straight people think about us and try to make us fit into their view of like heteronormativity, because like in their mind, masculine equals male, which equals the penetrative partner, which is stupid and bad.
Go off.
Yeah.
No, there's a very like overarching, there's kind of like tying into all of this, like these stereotypes and jokes and kind of like, attitude of like, oh, well, like I'm fine with you being gay as long as you're not too gay. There's this kind of overarching, very, very present sense that gayness and gay relationships and gay sexuality, or just gay people existing, is not palatable or tolerable for mainstream consumption unless it is aimed at straight people. Like, I was just reading this article by a lesbian woman about the representation of queer women in advertisements. And she was talking about how in these advertisements, there's always these like conventionally attractive, conventionally feminine young women who are engaging in some kind of like sensual activity. They're kissing or they're like looking at each other in a certain way. And it's always geared towards men. And she pointed this out based on the fact that they all have this like conventionally feminine, like attractive appearance. They are all usually straight models. And they're all kind of looking like there'll always be one that is looking towards the camera, looking towards the viewer, and like inviting them to like come in and join the scene. You know, like they're fun and they're sexy and they want the like male presence viewing them. Ooh. And she was talking about this kind of rhetoric in advertisements and in the way that lesbian and bisexual women are regarded in real life, and those like stereotypes like lesbian until graduation, and stuff like that. So I thought that that was a really good, like, concise example of that attitude, especially something that women in the community have to deal with, because there's like the added presence of just like the male gaze in general and the imbalance that causes in our patriarchal society. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I know as a gay man, of course, like we were talking about, you know, with like the gay best friend stereotype, that's something that I encounter a lot in my life. I'm in straight spaces. I feel a lot of pressure to talk in kind of an amplified way and move in kind of an amplified way to fit this view that they have of me, which isn't... It's
not great.
Yeah, and it's not the way that I would feel doing those things around other gay people, because it becomes not a way of expression of myself. It becomes a performance, and people start to expect that from you because they think, oh, you're open about your sexuality, you're open about your gender, so you owe these things to the world 100% of the time, and you owe us as straight people to like present these things in a way that is palatable, in a way that doesn't challenge these preconceived notions of what gayness is and of what transness is. So there's just this subconscious pressure to act a certain way, to talk a certain way. People will say things, like straight people will say things to me that they wouldn't say with their straight friends. They'll be like, yes, and like, I don't know, like occur and stuff like that, which aren't really words in my vocabulary because I don't keep up with the times. But, you know, they'll start saying those things around me. And at first, you're just kind of like, oh, like, this means that me being gay isn't something that they're going to, like, roll their eyes at. And then after a few minutes, it turns into this almost, like, mocking performance of who you are as a person. And every action that you do, every subconscious movement that you're not even thinking about, is kind of mimicked and thrown back at you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, because I've had the same experience in like spaces when I'm like mostly around straight people, or even if there's just one straight person near me, if I'm in a group with like other like gay people and there's like the one straight person, I feel like even if like there's definitely, it's weird because somehow I'm more gay around straight people, but it's in a different way.
Yeah.
Than I would be like around you, because like I don't seriously talk about my attraction to men in front of straight people, really, because that feels like that would be crossing their boundaries, and I don't know why I'm caring about their boundaries.
You don't want them to talk to you
like,
about like...
Yeah, but like I feel like, oh, if I'm going to I need to make my sex life a joke. I need to make my attraction to men a joke constantly, so they don't feel pressured to actually like face that this is like a real thing almost. Exactly. That it seems like just so campy and like stupid. And there's definitely people who like I've seen interact with like my peers who are straight. Like it's happened at work before to me, where like they'll be talking to somebody and they'll be talking to them like they're a normal person, but when they're talking to me, like their like tone of voice kind of changes and like the way they move are changing, because kind of like how like I do around my friends, because I just like moving my body like that. And it feels like they're almost trying to bait me into being like more campy, like so they can like be like, oh, this is such a fun conversation, even if we're talking about something like work related, or like if I'm working on a group project. I have straight people in my groups tragically sometimes, even in like my gay classes, and I feel like when I'm talking to them, they're never taking me seriously because I'm like just talking like myself, and it feels like I'm being mocked because like they're like talking in like, oh, like, okay, girl, like voice at me the whole time. And I'm like, I'm trying to discuss our project details with you. This is just my voice. And yucky.
I understand what you're saying. And also you bringing up the fact that like, you don't want to talk about certain things around them because of their boundaries kind of had me thinking about that, because you're right. There is this like, there's this air of like, oh, I can like be gay in these certain ways. Like I can wear this clothing and I can like make these jokes, or I can like, you know, gesticulate with my hands while I'm talking, just to pull from my own little arsenal of homosexuality. But I was going to say something else, but I was like, I don't want to say that in the, you know, but I think it's because like, I can't talk about gay politics around a lot of people that I know, and I can't talk about my attraction to men around a lot of people that I know seriously, or in a way that would differentiate from their experiences as non-gay people who are attracted to men. Because if I do that, then there are a lot of societal aspects of that influence those things. There's a lot of like, you know, centuries worth of history of oppression that influences those things, that influences the way that I let myself think about men, that influences how I feel when I'm out somewhere with my boyfriend. It influences the way that I think about myself, the way that I dress, the way that I think, the way that I talk. And if I'm bringing those things up, it is implicating them, because I'm saying like, basically, even though I'm not directly attacking them, what it's saying to them is it's saying like, your people did this to me and this is why I have to deal with these things. And that's uncomfortable for them. And when you are gay, you go through your life having to be very conscious of what is going to make people uncomfortable, how people are going to react to these things. And you learn and you analyze the patterns that occur when you're surrounded by straight people, because you have to, even if you're going to break the rules, you have to learn them first, you know, for your own protection, for your own safety. And so excluding these very real, very serious feelings and thoughts that you have that can be like a huge part of your life, and excluding them and instead exuding, you know, turning up these like external aspects of your gayness. For me, at least, it's like a defense mechanism, because I don't want them to know that vulnerable part of myself, because I know that in that space, once they know it, they're going to like make fun of it. They're not going to take it seriously. And I'm not going to be able to do anything about it because I'm outnumbered there. So I think that like a subconscious part of myself is always thinking about those things and like, you know, deciding what lines I can cross and what lines I can't. And it can feel, after a while, if you're surrounded by this like presence of straightness for too long without any relief that comes from like socializing with other gay people, it can build up into this sense where you just feel like a shell of yourself, and you do not feel like a real human, and you do not feel like you have a right to the emotions of a real human and to the opinions of a real human, and you feel just like a caricature. And meanwhile, you know, the straight people around you know so little about you and about your experience as a gay person that they just don't have a clue. you've become so good at disguising it that they don't have a clue. So I think that that's, for me, one of the most serious effects of all those like little things like that, is when they all add up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like when you're gay and you're interacting with a straight person, there's always like, you're always so aware of the power imbalance because they have that above you, and like whether or not they can praise up and down that they are the biggest gay ally, but like you never know just when that line ends for them.
Right.
Because I've seen people say, oh, I'm the biggest gay ally, but then they don't understand what's wrong about them saying like faggot on Twitter or the D-slur on Twitter. They're like, what's wrong with that? I love gay people. So like you never know quite what they mean by I'm the biggest ally, and you don't know. And like severe cases when your slip up or your overstepping will be your last time doing it, or like they always have this power over you because there's a subconscious part of like us that we recognize that they have that over us, and there's a part of them where they know they have that over us. Like we're both aware of it, but it's not something anyone admits. And it's something that just goes ignored.
And it's a group mentality too. Like I was just thinking, because I'm also trans, as you all know. And like tonight I was at this internship program that I do, and we were learning about stage management, and we had a stage manager who was teaching us, and they're fantastic. Just an amazing person. And they're trans. But you know, we're sitting in a room full of cis people, and they're like, oh, everyone go around and like introduce yourself and like give me like a fun fact about you and say your pronouns. And so we're going around, and we get to this one girl, and she's like a cis girl, and she's saying like her name and stuff, and where she goes to school, and she's like, oh, and I just use like, you know, like regular pronouns. And I'm sitting there, and the only other like trans person my age is sitting next to me, and we kind of exchange this like look, you know, and we know, but no one says anything. Like no one was like, oh, like, you know, the pronouns of trans people are regular as well. Like no one was saying that. And the teacher couldn't say that, even though, you know, they're an adult speaking to a room full of teenagers, because then suddenly they wouldn't be taken seriously, even though they're being given a position of authority, and we are being told to listen to them and like respect their presence in that room. And so there's like a lot of little moments that happen like that to gay and trans people. And there's nothing that you can really do in the moment, because you know that if you do it, you'll be jeopardizing your position in class or at work or in like some space that you can't leave, and you have to get something done. So if you want to say something, first you have to think like, how is this going to affect my ability to do these things that I need to do for myself? Like, how is this going to affect my ability to get access to this treatment, or to get paid, or like to learn something? And you always have to be putting the long term before your personal comfort.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, I just hate them so much. God. Yeah, basically, straighties be whack, and same with sissies.
Okay.
Speaking of straighties being fucking whack, the amount of times I have to log on to twitter.com and see them not knowing what the fuck top and bottom means make me go absolutely feral.
Or femme.
Yeah, or femme.
None of them know what femme mean. None of them register that it's a lesbian term, or like know the history of femme, which is wild to me, because like I'm not a lesbian, and I know, you know, I mean, I don't have like a deep grasp on like what that would feel like as an identity, because I'm not a lesbian. But like, if you do like a quick Google search, you can find out what femme is and where it comes from. Like, it's not like a synonym for woman, or like a woman aligned person, which is really just, when they say that, they really just mean a trans woman, but they don't want to just say women and include trans women in that. So that's where that comes from. But yeah, they don't.
I know, like, recently, I think as people have started to kind of go at fucking like yaoi fangirls, they've like adapted their language and they've kind of taken gay language to like change so they're more acceptable. Like I'll see things like on Twitter or Tumblr that are like, bottoms be like super shy and small and soft, and like tops are like big and strong and blah blah blah. And it's like just what they said about their fucking weird ass like Semi and Yuki shit or whatever. And they're just
can you give our little listeners like a quick like overview of yaoi and Semi and Yuki? Because I mean, like, I kind of take it for granted that like every gay teenager is gonna have negative experience with those things and then know what they are because of that. But like, then I remember that not all people do. So,
God, yeah. As the ex yaoi fan bitch, I'll give it to you.
So sorry.
Semi is usually the person who tops and is more aggressive in the relationship, and Yuki, whatever the fuck, I don't know how to say it. I never knew how to say it, and I definitely don't care now, are the bottoms, and they're much more affectionate and like weak and small and younger. And it's like,
if you know anything about the pedophilic dynamics of ancient Greece, that's what Yuki and Semi are.
Yeah, and yaoi, for those of you who are like so fucking lucky and don't know what that is, it's basically just like manga or anime that fetishizes a male and like same-sex male relationships, and it's always like
Isaac banned from anime in middle school.
Shut up. And it's like overly sexual always, and usually like in a really bad gray area of ages, like, and like, like even if they are like supposed to be the same age,
they'll have like teacher student stuff. They'll be like the same, but one will be like fucking like, I don't know, the like creepy like weeaboo term for like Lita.
Yeah, it's just, it's basically bad. They're bad stereotypes and a bad fetishistic fucking boys love thing where it's made for like straight women to jack off to gay people. And I consumed a lot of it when I was like in middle school, and it's really bad a lot of the time. It's all so creepy and like predatory, and like a lot of it is generally portrayed as older men preying on younger men a lot of the time, like in high school boys, and they're like grown-ass men. So it's,
I actually did not know about that aspect of it before. I mean, I knew that it was a thing, but I didn't know it was that prevalent before you started talking about it, because my cringy middle school phase was like Hamilton fan fiction. So
we were also middle schoolers like at very different times.
Yeah,
that's true. Hamilton, thank God, wasn't a thing when I was in middle school. It's also
like 13 into it.
It is like, it's bad. Like one of the most common themes is like rape stuff and a lot of this stuff, because it's like the ook is like fucking like innocent and sweet, and they don't want to be a dirty little homosexual, but the big one's corrupting them and forcing themselves on it, and it just feels so good, I don't want it to stop, and weird
stop
shit like that. I
hate this.
Basically what we're trying to say, it's bad. And sorry, I'm on like the Wikipedia page right now just because I like,
no, Isaac,
and I'm sorry, but I just scrolled down to like grab something, and all I saw was Italia Axis powers, and that made me black out.
No!
But it's not like just like an anime thing. Like people make these like fan doujinshis. I don't fucking know. I'm not like, I respect other languages. I just refuse to learn yaoi terms. But there's like stuff for like Harry Potter and stuff. It's just basically porn manga of like disgusting and basically it's a bad way of depicting gay men, and it's in a completely
too, like,
in a very
not just, like, images.
Yeah, it's in a very heteronormative way, as in like their version of bottoms is very feminine and weak, and it's gross, and it's just bad, basically. We talked a bit too long about yaoi, and I wanted to stop. But
Me too, buddy.
A lot of the way they're taking it, and it's like they're adapting to use our own terms to fetishize us, so it's a bit harder to spot out when they're doing it.
Exactly. So, like, and they can claim they have more plausible deniability because they can be like, oh, well, you know, what does it matter that, like, I made this, like, disgusting joke about you and your boyfriend who I just met because, like, you know, I didn't use these terms for you. I used, like, the correct terms that you guys use. So, like, I'm in the right here. I'm educated. So they can get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
Straight people will excuse them because of that.
I asked my lovely friend Sam if she would talk to us a bit about this topic, and she had this to say on the topic of like the modern appropriation of gay dialogue. I think the modern appropriation of gay dialogue rubs me the wrong way for a lot of reasons. Firstly, a lot of gay dialogue appropriated by straight people, especially women, was first appropriated by gay men who took it from black women, like Sister, Wig, etc. And the straight appropriation continues to further this harmful pattern. Second, the language has specific groups within the gay community, such as top, bottom, femme, butch, and loses any and all historical significance it had. Top, verse, and bottom were created because gay sex cannot be categorized the same way as heterosexual sex has traditionally been categorized, and new language was needed to replace the heteronormative viewpoints of who is the man and who's the woman. When straight couples use it, they don't even use it correctly. A straight woman is not a top just because she's firm with her boyfriend. The categorization of femme and butch are even more distorted by straight appropriation, as they were a specific push against traditional roles for women in relationships, and straight women who label themselves as such ignore that femme and butch specifically revolve around the lack of relationship with men.
We stand.
Yeah, which I think is important to like really like the lack of relationship with men, because I don't see a lot of straight women going around and like saying like, well, actually, I do. I was going to say I don't see them saying, like,
there's the whole femme thing. Like, straight women will call themselves butch because they think that that's, like, gross and disgusting. But they'll go around with shirts that say, like, femme on them or whatever because they think it's, like, they're like, it's French for woman, hee-hee. And I'm like, technically you're correct, but that's not what that means in this country, and you know it. So,
and they're, like, specifically, like, buying them from, like, Etsy stores run by, like, women who love women and like lesbian women. So like, okay. And a lot of like, it's just
yeah.
And then they get upset when they do like have this kind of stuff like in their Twitter bios, and like a girl hits on them. They're like, I'm not, why am I
why is it's everyone like, mistaking me for a lesbian? This is so horrible. There's also a similar thing like I've noticed that I think is less touched upon is that like straight dudes love to be like homoerotic with each other, and then they do the same thing when they're found out. Like they love to make the homoerotic jokes, and that game that your boyfriend was really good at in middle school when he thought he was straight.
Gay Chicken.
Yeah, Gay Chicken. Shout out to Alex, Gay Chicken champion.
Yeah, shout out to my poor heterosexual boyfriend. Not sure why he's getting hard when a boy touches his knee in middle school. Straight men are fucking weird like that. Like, I mean, straight women do it too with the, like, we're gonna make out for fun. But
I think they both do it, and it's in, like, different ways. Like, straight men are genuinely doing it for each other, and then straight women are also doing it for straight men.
Yeah, it is all for straight men, but it's, like,
gross.
Just so
straight
fucking...
men don't deserve anything.
Gross. I don't know how many times in high school I'm like minding my own business, and I like in the hallway I see like these straight dudes slapping each other's ass, and they're like and like they're making like flirty comments about each other, and then all their friends laugh and are like haha gay, haha, and they slap each other's ass again, and I'm like, all right, y'all called me like dirty faggot the other day, but whatevs. It's fine when it's for a joke and not for gay consumption.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to pull up. I also talked to my lovely friend who asked to remain anonymous for this. But she gave me some little lesbian onions about her experiences with straight objectification and stuff. As she said, she was saying, like, just in my experience of being a lesbian, I've definitely been seen more as a fetish than a person by men online. She said, I've talked to some men that like to message me on my, I'm not going to name the account, but she has one that she uses for, like, she's a performer, so she has an account that she posts that kind of thing on, and it's pretty badass. She said, and it's come up on my Instagram story there, and in one of my posts, that I'm gay, and I've had a lot of men call me sexy for that, and some claim that they can hear me straight, or if they can hear, or they ask if they can hear some hot lesbian stories. And she says, even just in, like, my home life, I'm a lesbian, and my younger sister is straight, and we've both dated, and I can definitely tell when I had a girlfriend, my parents didn't really care because they still viewed us as friends, and when my sister got a boyfriend, they approached it in a very serious way. In my experience, the jokes about straight people viewing lesbians as just friends is so true. So she was talking to me a little bit about that, and I wanted to share it because I think that, you know, she brought up some really important points, and I think that, like, especially what she was saying about her experiences, like having girlfriends and what that's treated like by her family, I think is something that is definitely way more unique to, like, to women who love women than it is to us, because of course, you know, there's still, like, there'll always be homophobes who will just deny that you're dating the person that you're dating.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, like, with lesbian and bi women, they genuinely do think of it as something, like, very pure and innocent and, like, ew, and not, like, dirty gays. And they'll think of it as, like, you know, they think of, like, lesbians, and they'll picture, like, girls at, like, a slumber party, like, braiding each other's hair, and it's very, like, demeaning and infantilizing in a lot of ways.
It's like either you're allowed to be viewed in this extremely sexual way that isn't, like, for you owning your own sexuality, or you are just super best friends, and it's all soft and sweet, and you can't be in between, and if you're going to be sexual or intense, it's not okay if it's for your enjoyment. That's just for porn.
Right. And also I would like to add, while we're speaking, because I have experienced that phenomena personally, but it was aimed at me by people that were not seeing me as male, since I'm a trans man and I am dating a trans man, and I have in the past. So it was very, like, it is something that has happened to me, but it was very much happening to me because the people that were doing it, like, were perceiving me as a woman.
Yeah. I was actually going to add something like that too, but a bit differently. In middle school, I did identify as a lesbian for most of middle school, up until probably the end of the 8th grade, when I learned being trans was a thing. And I dated girls during that time, and I dated girls for a bit in high school, and it was before I was out. So that was definitely my experience with it. It was like anytime I was, like, with my girlfriend, who I was, like, obviously with, back when I dated people in person, or, like, when I talked about my girlfriend, called her girlfriend, it was always, oh, haha, what good friends, hee hee, you're always, like, Skyping, and, like, my family can hear me telling her that, like, I'm in love with her and I would like to kiss her and stuff. And, like, I've expressed that, but it's still like, oh, what good friends. And now that I'm, like, out as a man and I'm dating men, other than, like, again, like, a couple homophobes who just always will view gay people as just really good friends, or they're just trying to really irk it. Or ever since I was out in general, it was just any time I was with or near male that was just a friend, it would be assumed that I was dating them, because male relationships are just viewed as, like, very, like, a different amount.
They're viewed as very sexual, and which is viewed as being wrong, and then because it's gay sex, it's extra wrong. So it's like, you can't even just be, like, because, you know, like, I'm a teenager and I've dated guys when I was, like, in the younger years of high school as well. And I couldn't have like just like a nice little like romance with a guy when I was doing that, and I was at those like ages, because people that would perceive me as a gay man would be like, oh, you're fucking. And it was really weird and uncomfortable because I was like 15 and I wasn't like ready for that, and I was like experiencing a lot of dysphoria and stuff, and I was just like, oh, I just want to like love my boyfriend, hee hee, I want to go on dates with him. And people were like, so do you eat ass? So they're like, oh, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say, I know, like, back when I was identifying as a lesbian, and like my family knew I had a girlfriend, and like I had friends who like they knew were girls and were into girls, but they didn't care about those sleepovers. Yeah. Like we were basically left unsupervised, left in the same bed. And I remember with one friend specifically, and at the time she identified as a lesbian. She identifies as bi now, and I love her dearly. And I was out as a guy. But as soon as that happened, even though I was attracted to men and she was attracted to women, and she was a woman and I was a man, and there's no possibility, her parents suddenly got very weird about us spending the night. But when we both identified as liking women and being women, it was fine. It was fine for us to spend the night with each other because you're just good friends. Like, lesbians don't exist. But as soon as I was a guy, even though, again, I didn't have attraction to women, she didn't have attraction to men at that time, it was suddenly, oh no, that's bad. Yeah.
I've definitely experienced that as well when I was younger, when I was like around like 12 and 13, because I thought that I was a girl and I thought that I was bisexual, and mainly just because like I had really good friends who were girls and I thought that they were really cool, and I was a kid, so I didn't like have a lot of like experience with that kind of attraction. So I was like, oh yeah, I would date them if they wanted to date me. So yeah, and I would have sleepovers with them all the time, and like sometimes like I was invited to some sleepover parties where like there was a lot of action going down for like 12 to 13-year-olds. Just a lot of little like baby LGBT action going on. And that was totally fine with everyone. But then, if I was alone in a room with a friend of mine who was a cis guy, then that was like, like people, like parents of friends that I had would have issues with that. And my mom never really did because she's chill, but like, their parents would have problems with that. And it made me, since I am a guy and I'm trans, it made me really dysphoric at the time, even though I didn't know. And yeah, and like now, like I'm not allowed to like spend the night with my boyfriend because like his mom won't let him do that because she like perceives me as male. And I'm like 90% sure that if we had been dating like a few years ago, when I looked a lot more feminine outwardly because I wasn't like confident in my gender presentation and stuff, that it would have been totally fine. So there's just stuff like that.
But yeah, it's just the way straight people view gay relationships is so weird and makes no sense if you try to logically think about it, because both the things they're thinking about gay relationships is like always contradictory, and somehow they're viewing it at the exact same moment. And like they'll say one thing this time and then suddenly like a day later they'll be saying this about like a different thing, but then it goes back to that thing in a different situation because they're just trying to cover up their like weird homophobia. And like it's just so tiring. It's like, just say you hate gay people and think we're dirty sex demons or some shit. It would just be so much more simple if you just came out and said you either don't think gay people can have loving relationships or you think we're all just dirty sinners.
It reminds me of this part in the book that I'm reading, not to be a nerd. It's called Eminent Outlaws, where it's talking about all these gay men who were like pretty famous as novelists and as playwrights in like the 50s, and it mentioned like Edward Albee and Tennessee Williams, and people like that. And they got really famous and they got rich, and their plays were getting great like critical acclaim because they're about straight people. And then suddenly there was this wave of like cultural fear, I think in the 60s, because, you know, the 60s, where people were like suddenly like on the lookout for like homosexuals like infiltrating the arts.
Mm-hmm. I'm all homosexuals infiltrating the arts.
Yeah. So they started, and this essay came out. It was Notes on Camp by Susan Sontag. And so all these straight critics started looking at that stuff, and they started being hypercritical of plays that they suspected were written by gay men. And I mean, they already were, but it got to like an extreme where they started, I think the author used as an example, he had a couple Philip Roth reviews for Edward Albee plays where he was maliciously attacking these plays and these books for being like too gay to be acceptable, when there was like not one shred of like, for lack of a better word, queer coding in the shows. And even like a gay reader wouldn't be able to find any, because he was just so insistent about it. And they would do things at the time. They wouldn't say like, oh, we don't want gay content like on Broadway. They would say, we don't want gay content on Broadway that's posing as straight content, because if these people like just frankly wrote about gay characters, we would be totally fine with it. But of course they wouldn't have been totally fine with it, and it would have like ruined careers. So I was just thinking about that while you were talking about like kind of the double standards and hypocrisy that come into play there.
Straight people be fucking wacky. Their logic makes no sense when they're viewing gay people or any sort of gay person produced art or media, and I think legally they should not be allowed to talk about it. Straight people are wacky, and I don't think they should be able to talk about gay people or gay things at all.
I also do, and like, this is more controversial, but I do apply that as well, like them not talking about us, to fiction and fictional portrayals, which we have talked about before on this podcast. But like, because I'm very wary when I see like a book that has a storyline about like coming out or about like gay identity, or like some kind of like social issue that we face, or political, that is by a straight person, partly because I don't trust any of them, but partly also because even though there are individual straight writers who I trust to portray gay characters well, and there are some books that I like by some of them, that I read over and over and over again, the industry is biased against gay people. So gay people don't get to tell gay stories, we only get to tell heterosexual stories, and straight people get to tell gay stories and sensationalize them and make them dramatic and like, you know, make it into an issue. So I don't trust a lot of that kind of thing. I don't think that it captures a lot of the sensitivity that gay authors capture when they're writing gay characters.
No, I definitely agree with you there. It's like when a straight person writes about gay stories, they're being, oh, so brave and so inspirational and so diverse and really changing the industry, but as soon as it's a gay person, they're just shoving it down people's throats.
Right. The same way that they act about white twinks wearing makeup without acknowledging the fact that the beauty industry is like oppressive towards women.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Straight people don't understand the levels to gay love, and they'll never experience the absolute like yearning and tenderness that comes with it. They only have this baseline idea of what our experiences are that they probably got off of other straight people's depictions of us, and it's always some form ingenuine or unrealistic.
Yeah. I'll say, like, if you are a straight person and you're listening to this and you're like, oh boy, how can I tell what I'm doing wrong? It's always good to, like, you have to consciously examine like the little actions and things that you say, like just throughout your life and like the way that you interact with gay people. But I think a good like basic guideline to see how much you need to do is like think like if you're going around either talking about how much you do not understand gayness or how much you do understand gayness, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing either of those things and you're just kind of existing and like respecting the people around you, then you're probably not doing all that bad.
Yeah, it's definitely something that like with any sort of privilege people have, you have to constantly be aware of what that privilege gives you over other groups, and it's something you have to constantly be unlearning and growing with. And I think in terms of like things like you can do to kind of help you kind of broaden your understanding of like gay people and their existence and their relationships is like actually consume things, like maybe read more or watch more documentaries that surround gay people in their lives, or consume more media that it's about gay people written for us instead of just...
Well, I would say that's like a good extra step to take, but I don't even think that you necessarily need to do that much. You just need to be aware of the fact that like if you're saying something, like if you're like talking to someone and you say something and like a gay person is like, "Oh, hey, don't say that. It makes me uncomfortable." Like you have to be conscious of those things in the moment and be like, "Oh yeah, I won't say that anymore." And then not say it anymore, because that's like, and like doing that and like treating people equally, because you're not going to have the same like internal grasp of all of those dynamics that you get when you like grow up with this identity and have to like figure it out and stuff. And I don't think that it's necessary to do that. You just have to like respect the people around you and respect their differences and not like talk over people, basically.
I also think that straight people need to recognize, because I see this one a lot, that just because your one gay friend says it's fine for you to say something to them or think your language is okay, if someone else who's like gay says like you can't say that, or like that's inappropriate, or that's like homophobic, and you try to just rebuttal it with, well, my one gay friend or like my other friend said it's fine, you can't really say that. Like, listen to why they said like, oh, this is why what I think you said is wrong, because there's more than just one gay person in the world, and what's appropriate for your friend might not always be appropriate for everyone.
Right. Like, if you want to get like, if you're thinking like, oh, well, how come like this person is saying this and my friend says that, then like go and get another, like go online and find like articles and stuff about it written by gay people and read about it and see what you think like makes the most sense based on that information that you're consuming. But then don't do the thing around the person that asked you not to do the thing.
Yeah. Like, I let my friends call me a twink. There's only 2 straight people in my life that I allow to call me a twink, being like the only 2 super close straight friends I have. And one of them doesn't like doing it because she doesn't think it's her place. But I told her she has a pass if she's ever in that moment of rage and needs to call me a stupid twink. But she's never once used it. Jen is the real ally. I once had in high school somebody like just came up to my face and called me a twink, and I was like, what? And like I didn't know this person at all. This person was like some random straight person I barely knew, and she just said that to me. And when I was like, I don't know you, like why did you call me that? Like I don't appreciate it. And like her only response was, well, I see like your friends calling you that. And I was like, hello.
It's like, yeah, my friends call me a stupid bitch too, but that doesn't mean I want you to do it.
Yeah. If a random...
I don't even let all my friends call me that. Yeah. Like, because at this point in my life, I am only really comfortable with those kinds of terms being applied to me in that way by like my gay and bi male friends, because I've had negative experiences and I just need some time to like forget about those things before I go back in, so to speak.
Yeah. And that is your right to call and set your boundaries like that. And if people aren't respecting them, that's called they're the problem. And I don't know. I feel like it's common sense to remember that there's more than one. There's no universal rule for people, but you have to learn to be a decent person and still, like...
Right. Just take the rules that you're applying, like take the rules that you've learned about respecting other people and being polite and social etiquette, and then just apply them to gay people and gay things as well. Like, that's all. If every cis person who thought that they were polite expanded their sense of politeness to include trans things, then, like, I wouldn't deal with any of the shit that I have to deal with, like, on a weekly basis.
If only, if only. As I said many a time before, Straighties be whack. Yeah.
Plus.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Gay As in Stupid. If you like our podcast, make sure you follow us on Tumblr at gayasinstupidpodcast and on Twitter at gayasinstupid. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, or YouTube. And I lied last week and did not set up a Google Play yet.
Isaac.
I'm sorry.
Well, you were in New York.
I was in New York. I was on a spring break trip because I'm a little...
He went to Stonewall.
I did go to Stonewall. I have
fresh gay energy.
Yeah. I'm finally at my peak gay.
Woo!
But, yeah. But, yeah. If you ever have any ideas for, like, topics we can cover or just want us to, like, share, like, certain media that you really like, definitely send it our way. We are always super excited when people, like, reach out and show us, like, new LGBT things. And you'll find our further readings and our monthly LGBT recs in our Tumblr post for this month. And... am I forgetting anything?
I think that's it.
Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Shout out and thank you to my boyfriend who made our intro outro song.
You forgot to be a gay.
I did. Thanks, baby.
Are you addressing that to Aiden or to me?
That was to my boyfriend, but if you guys want a ugly smooch, I'll give it to you.
I don't, but, like, we usually do when we're, like, calling. So.
Yeah, well, I gave it to you anyways.
Like, mwah.
Mwah.
Thank you.
Mwah. Yeah, well, that's a wrap then. See you guys next month.
See you next time. Don't be sexual.